Hey, it's Joseph, and I've very recently, done something a little bit crazy. I bought a $10,000 PC. Now, what could have possessed me to do such a thing, especially because I'm a Mac guy, and I'm not going to stop being a Mac guy. My primary computer is a Mac. I'm on a Mac right now. I'm not switching from Mac to PC. Let's just be clear about that. I bought the PC specifically for 3D rendering, and GPUs lend themselves very, very wonderfully to that task. But the GPUs that I put in this PC, each one of them takes 350 watts of power. So accomplishing this with a laptop is out of the question. And you might be thinking, okay, you're a Mac guy and you wanted to build a very expensive computer for rendering. Why not a Mac Pro? It's obviously in the budget, but it's not really in the budget. We'll get to that in a moment. First, I want to talk about what possessed me to get this computer, and it comes down to two projects that are in the works. I'm going to switch over to my computer screen here and show you the first of those two projects, which is a website called shapefest.com, which is a side project of mine, and I'm rendering a lot of 3D assets that are free for you guys. They're all for you, and they're all free on here. Now, why would I spend so much money on a computer to make free stuff? Hopefully, this becomes profitable at some point in the future, confident enough at least to continue to invest in this project. So yes, I'm spending money on a project that doesn't make any money right now. And the number one reason for that is because I enjoy creating things, creating design assets and sharing them with the community. So shapefest.com is where you can go to grab all this stuff, things like icons, things like Apple devices, 3000 hands, which is very popular. It was the product of the week on Product Hunt, and you can just download all these graphics for free and start using them for screen design, presentations, whatever you want. Project number 2 is CryptoFluffs. This is an NFT project where I've been working on these collectible NFTs that are these cute little crypto fluff balls. I think this is going to be a really exciting launch. There are going to be 5,000 of them. Each one of them is unique. Once they're sold, that's it. If you want one, you'd have to buy it from someone else who already has one. So if you want to stay up to date and not miss the launch day, join the Discord on CryptoFluffs.com. That way you can stay in contact with me. I'll be talking about this project along the way. And there will be more videos to come. Okay. Now that that is out of the way, let's talk about the PC itself, especially because some of you may be wondering about that Mac Pro still and why I didn't just get a Mac Pro. This PC is based on an AMD chip. It's based on an AMD Threadripper Pro, which is sort of AMD's workstation series. It's meant to be worked really hard, have a lot of electricity pumped through it for extended periods of time. And I went with a 16 core, and that is the lowest core count of this generation of Threadripper Pro processors. And you might be thinking, well, why did you build this beast PC and go with the lowest core count? The reason is that the lower core counts actually reach higher clock speeds per core for applications that don't use all 16 cores. So if you're working in Cinema 4D, you're editing in the viewport, doesn't really maximize on a high core count. If I had a 64 core, for example, each of those 64 cores would be a little bit slower. They couldn't all be used by the viewport in the Cinema 4D, at least with the current state of the product. So what I would end up with is slightly reduced performance by having more cores that are less fast per core. I did 128 gigs of RAM. Lots of RAM. I don't think I'm going to be short on RAM. And the really important part, 2 NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3090s. Not one, but two physical cards. And these cards are huge. And they use 350 watts of power apiece, 700 watts dedicated to just the graphics cards themselves. And it is possible that I could, I guess, theoretically, put another graphics card in there. There's room for another graphics card. But these RTX 3090 Founders editions, they're considered open air graphics cards, which means they have a fan on the top and the bottom, and they blow air into the case. Those don't sandwich together very nicely. They get a little grumpy. They get a little too hot. So these cards, you don't want to stack 4 of them on top of one another, even if you have room or you have enough power. Realistically, stacking 4 of these together and having a single power supply, it's too much electricity for like a normal house. Like you might actually trip your circuit breaker. It's too much. So 2 of these cards is kind of the sweet spot for temperature and for, a normal 15 amp or 20 amp circuit breaker in a house. So that's what I went with because I want performance and reliability. I don't want to go completely nuts on the performance end and then have reliability issues. I didn't build it myself. It's currently a very weird time for GPUs because there is a chip shortage. I doubt this video will age well because we're going to look back on that and laugh. But right now, it is possible to go and buy an RTX 3090 for twice retail and consider yourself lucky. It's crazy. It's a crazy time. You might spend $3,000 on one RTX 3090, which is insane. That means $6,000 for these two graphics cards if I wanted to build this computer myself. So I figure, you know, if it's going to cost the same amount either way, I might as well order from Puget Systems. I set up a quick little consultation with them. We ended up on a phone call, and they were so helpful, and they don't want you to spend any more money than you have to spend, which I appreciated, and then proceeded to spend more money than they thought I should spend. Where things start to get really amazing is every step of the way after I placed my order. I mean, look at this. They took photographs of my computer. They sent me photographs of my actual computer. And here you can see the innards of the computer, and there are these custom brackets that they put on here, these custom acrylic brackets, so that these parts are extra stabilized during shipping. And just the amount of care, not just in the cable management and everything, but the amount of care that goes into the preparation of the computer for the customer is unlike anything I've ever seen before. I mean, they were so communicative in the process. Look, as I scroll, you can see that they took thermal images of my computer. They sent me thermal images of my computer so that I could see, well, one, so that they could see that there were no overheating issues, and two, so that I could see and confirm that isn't just conjecture. It's a fact. The computer did not have any cooling issues before it was sent to me. And as I scroll through this, you can see there are status updates from every single little step of the way. It's their entire checklist. And I was able to follow this in real time to see, like, as they were building the computer, which is just absolutely insane. And with that, they also did all this benchmarking. They showed how many watts of electricity the computer uses under full load and at idle. And coming through here, they did all of these different benchmarks that are, you know, some of which are their own, some are industry standard. They did a burn-in and a stress test to make sure that if the graphics card was going to fail, or if either graphics card was going to fail, that it would fail before they sent it to me, which is wonderful. I so appreciate that because I don't want it to fail on my watch, because then we have to ship it back. And this thing was friggin' heavy. The shipping weight, I think, was 83 pounds or something like that. So not the kind of computer that you'd want to pass back and forth via the mail. I had no regrets about not building it myself, both in terms of price and in terms of process. Really, really incredible. So thank you, Puget Systems, if you're watching this. Again, not a paid endorsement. They don't even know I'm making this video. So now back to the Apple comparison, because I know some of you are out there saying, you could have built a Mac Pro, you idiot. True, I could have built a Mac Pro. I could have gotten less computer per dollar. You're probably not shocked. People know Apple computers, they're more expensive. You pay a premium. I love Apple computers. I'm a die-hard Mac guy. I worked for Apple for 8 years, and I'm not switching away from Mac. It's important to know that if we're trying to do an apples for apples comparison, that we've got to configure a Mac Pro that's approximately $18,999, $19,000 before tax, in order to approximate the performance of this PC that was $10,004, right? So pretty much $10,000 on the dot. Here we have a 16-core Xeon configured. That's about equivalent to the 16-core Threadripper Pro. 96 gigabytes of memory, which is slightly less memory than I have configured in my PC, but, you know, rounding down instead of rounding all the way up to 192 gigs. And then continuing down to graphics cards options, the graphics card, you can't put 4 graphics cards, at least you can't configure Mac Pro with 4 graphics cards, but you can get 2 W6800X graphics cards. It's an AMD Radeon card. That's basically 2 GPUs on one card, right? So 2 of these duo cards is basically like 4 cards, and one of these cards by itself is roughly equivalent to one RTX 3090. In terms of teraflops of processing power, teraflops are how many trillion floating point operations can be computed by the graphics card. The W6800X Duo can crunch 30 teraflops per second. The 3090 can crunch 35 teraflops. So they're close. The 13090 is actually still faster. So what we have here is a $19,000 Mac Pro that has 2 of these cards and therefore can crunch 60 teraflops of computations, where the dual 3090s in my PC can crunch 71, right? So 60 versus 71, the PC is still faster, and the PC is almost half the price. So pretty nuts. I mean, you might look at this and say, okay, we're over 10 grand, same thing. 19 grand is not the same thing as 10 grand. I'm not on a $19,000 computer budget. Absolutely not. So if we wanted to make this a $10,000 Mac Pro, we could bring the graphics card down to here, a W5700X with 16 gigs of RAM. So how does that stack up? That card does approximately 9.75 teraflops. And if you followed the Apple announcement today with the new M1 Max, does 10 teraflops. So the MacBook Pro is more powerful than this, right? That's pretty insane. So we're looking at a $10,000 iMac that will get spanked by the new MacBook Pro. That's crazy. I don't consider that money well spent. I do have the new MacBook Pro on the way. So back to, I am a diehard Mac fan. I'm still a diehard Mac fan. I just ordered my M1 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro just this morning. So that is on its way, and more about that to come. But for now, just know that you actually don't get a super kick-ass Mac Pro for $10,000. You get a kick-ass PC or a mediocre Mac Pro. But again, this PC is very, very purpose-built. I'm only using it for 3D rendering, specifically for rendering using Maxon Redshift as an extension of Maxon Cinema 4D, so that I can pump out more content for all of you on shapefest.com and to wrap up this CryptoFluffs project. So that is what possessed me to go and build this PC. I know it seems nuts. It's pretty nuts, especially being that most of what I'm creating with it is completely free. Head to shapefest.com, enjoy shapefest.com. Plan on everything that is free now continuing to be free forever. So go and enjoy. I'll put a link in the description below. If you want more about NFTs, you want to learn more about 3D, you want to know more about my story and what I'm up to on the PC side of things, on the rendering side of things, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.